We try to create, Mark, easy formats, non-awkward formats for parents to connect. We don't have people that will stand for truth. We're in a very dangerous way in a society where men no longer stand up for truth at the risk of their own comfort.
There's a lot more of that straight ahead, guys. So let's go. This is the show dedicated to raising up the next generation of men of faith and character. My name is Mark Stanifer. Welcome to The Next Man Up,
part of the NRT Podcast Network.
Well, hey guys, welcome back once again to the Next Man Up podcast. So good as always to have you along with us for another episode and to be part of the community that's changing the world one boy becoming a healthy and godly man at a time. You know this, my name is Mark, and I'm honored to be your host as we kick off another episode and roll into a brand new year. In today's episode, we're going to continue the conversation that I had with Bob Gresh. Bob is the co-founder of Born to be Brave, a ministry for fathers to be able to connect with their sons. He also wears a number of different hats, such as author, entrepreneur, business leader. He led a private school for a period of time. All of that really works its way into and through our conversation, including what it looks like when dads get it right versus what it looks like when dads get it wrong. What's at stake if we don't engage well as dads. And although we don't put it this way in the conversation, there's a consistent and a persistent theme that we need good men. We need us as fathers to be good men, and we need to raise up the next generation of good men. We cover all that and a bunch more. So let me get out of the way once again and get you to the second part of this conversation I had with Bob Gresh. Here we go. So let me ask you to narrow down a little bit with the father and son connecting. And from your experience, the guys that you've worked with, you know, the stories that you've heard, even from your own home, what are some ways that dads get it wrong in terms of connecting? And what are some ways that dads get it right? What does it look like when they get it right?
That's a good question. Let me tell you what it looks like when they get it right, and it happens in the middle of our show. I'll tell you this story. When I was about 18 years old, I was a good tennis player. I was number 2 on our big high school team, and then I went and played for Cedarville University. I like tennis. I still like tennis. And I was playing my father figure, my uncle, who was not a great father figure, but he was the only guy I had. And we went out to play tennis in December in Pennsylvania. I remember it like it was yesterday because it's not usually warm enough to play tennis. I was beating him pretty badly, and then he came back, and in the end, he beat me. And I view him as ancient at the time, but now doing the math backwards, I think he was about 40. So he was playing the kind of tennis I played today, which is all angles and old man ball, which is
smarter, not harder.
Just as good, yeah. And so he comes up to me after he beat me, and he shook my hand and said, "Bob, it was fun playing you. Really enjoyed it. But I knew I'd beat you because Greshes never finish. Greshes never finish." And I remember that like it was yesterday. And it started a lie in my heart, kind of background music that I was a quitter. I couldn't finish. All of a sudden, being number 2 on the team wasn't quite as fun because I just wasn't working hard enough to be number 1. When in fact, the number 1 guy was like professionally trained. He was way above me. But it started this lie in my heart that I carried with me about being lazy, about, this kind of stuff. I share that, talk about, replacing that with the truth. I share that with the dads and the sons at the event. We give them a piece of duct tape, a duct tape sticker, and said, think about the lies in your life. When do you have a 10 reaction to a 2 problem? What if who you are isn't up for a vote? What if where are you campaigning, comparing, or competing? What is a lie in your life? We give them a few minutes to think about that. And they'll say, I feel unloved, unworthy. They'll talk about that with their child, with their kid, and the kid will say what his lie is. And it might be, they'll tell their dad, I feel stupid or weak, rejected, unlovable. And in answer to your question, when they get it right, it's very simple. We just set up a very easy format for them. We say 100% cool, 0% awkward, because we're setting these things up as we go through the show and getting it to be a little bit more deeper and deeper. And so we say, hey, share the lie that you came up with, Dad, with your son, and then have him share it with you. And I'll tell you what, it is amazing what that does into the lives of men and boys to be able to their dad hear what their son is going through that they might never have asked him before because it just don't have that format. So I think it's really great for ministries like yours, create those formats. I think churches should be creating those formats more. And so I think where guys get it right is just by spending time with their kids. Quality time is great, but so is quantity time, because sometimes out of a lot of quantity time, you get a little bit of quality time. And I use this example. My wife will say, when Robbie was growing up, Bob took him out to wing night every Thursday night and da-da-da. Well, it wasn't every Thursday night. It kind of encapsulates it, but I'd take him for wings at 9:00 at night. He was young. And I'd come home and my wife would say, what'd you talk about? What'd you talk about? Anything, And I had to say, most of the time we didn't talk about anything. Just kind of sat there semi-awkwardly watching the game. But it wasn't efficient time, but it was just time that he would remember as being time that I committed to him. So I think where dads get it right is by entering that kid's life and being where they want to be, not just taking them hunting because the dad likes hunting and is trying to make the kid into him, but entering life where that kid is. Where they get it wrong, I believe, is trying to over spiritualize everything, trying to force conversations, and not being transparent, particularly among teenagers. Because if you're not transparent, you're not going to relate very well. The student, the son doesn't have any idea that you struggle with pornography. He wouldn't think that. He doesn't think that about you any more than you think it about him when he's 12 years old. When he's your young boy, he's sitting at the dinner table and you realize, oh my gosh, when I was 12 or 13, I stumbled into that. My kid would never do that, but they do. And so I think being transparent is very critical to bridging that gap between people's constant expectations that other people are better than they are.
So your comment there about where dads get it wrong and the pornography example or whatever that you used, it makes me think of your own experience with the church and that community who initially wanted to just jettison you. We don't know what to do with you, and so come down hard. And I'm just thinking back in my own journey as a father, some of my earlier responses were come down hard. And as I matured and as I grew, it was more of like, okay, it happened. How can I put my arm around you and let's walk through this and out the other side together, instead of, the come down hard, whatever that might look like. Let me walk through this with you as a way to mentor and shepherd and to deepen the connection, not just break the connection because of something the boy did, but to draw that boy in and use that as a way to deepen the connection. Yes, with discipline, probably with consequences, maybe some more boundaries. I don't mean to disregard the wise parenting, but relationally, may it be an opportunity to connect rather than an opportunity to divide.
Yeah, Philip Yancey is my favorite writer. He has a great quote that says, Jesus was able to separate the sin from the sinner. And I think that's a really key element to say we're all sinners. So we just have to be able to understand the insanity of sin. We could be completely healthy. We know exactly what to put in our body to be completely healthy, and anybody could be extremely healthy in 100 days. But I continually put things in my body that I know are not for my best interest. It's insanity. So it's hard. I think understanding that insanity helps us to be compassionate, grace-filled, and truth-filled, to know that it could have been me that did the sin, but I'd also need to come to repentance, and I'd also need some consequences to make sure, and accountability to make sure I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to sit pastors down after they stumble out. They should want to sit down until they're fully through that repentance and that process. And that's the complicated situation there. When you've been through what I've been through, you can really recognize it, repentance, and that you don't want to be up front. You know what God's doing in your life. You don't want to be up front. Yeah. There's a deep humility that comes over. And so any pastor that falls and wants to be back in the pulpit 3 months from now, it isn't good for their life. It's not good for their life generally. So
we've been bouncing around a bit. There's a question I want to ask you, just based on what's on your website. You guys have a box for your for fathers to engage with their kids. And I don't know what the genesis of that was, but tell me and tell the listeners about this Born to be Brave box.
Man, I'm a terrible marketer. Even that's my background. I forgot totally about it.
You're welcome.
We love it. It's called the Brave Box, and we have a subscription box for the girls. And then I thought this would be fun for the boys. We don't do it every other month like we do for the girls yet, but we put together a box of cool things. They now have 30-day daily devotionals for 60 days. There's a quiet time journal in there, a diary that I filled out when I was a kid. What is the writer saying? How does it apply to my life? Little things you can do. And like 30 memory verses that come with it, 21, I think, 26 memory verses that the dad and the son can learn together on cards. This last month we had a magic trick in it. There's one of the 2 boxes has periscope glasses. They're called lazy readers. They're the favorite thing kids want at our shows. It's where you can lay down in bed and watch TV, because it's a 90-degree angle. Mm-hmm. And that has a Bible lesson wrapped around it about your word is a lamp unto my feet and light into my path. Not a spotlight, but a lamp. And so it's an interactive box to have interactive adventure with your kid. There's some really cool stuff in there that the kid will love. And it's just a super great way of connecting with your son. And it's really exciting for the son to get that when we come out with a new box, and it's been very successful. It's really deep discipleship and something the dad can. We try to create, Mark, easy formats, non-awkward formats for parents to connect that are more natural rather than just these heavy core Bible teachings. We try to connect parents in a way, and fathers and sons in a way that's natural when they're walking around. We have one thing, it's called a random road trip. We have a spinner, and you just head someplace and you spin the spinner and it says, go left, go right, or choose. You just drive around with your kid, see where you're going to end up. It's easy for the dad. It's fun.
Little adventure.
A little lesson about, which path you take or whatever, So we try to do that to make it easy for dads and natural as part of their daily life. But the box is great. It's really fun.
What's the ideal age for a boy to engage with the cool stuff in the box?
I'd say that the box is probably 7 to 12, probably first through, 7th grade or so.
Okay.
They can interact with it on different levels. But yeah, the box is really cool. It's really cool. It's one thing getting to a show for 2.5 hours. It's another thing giving them something they can go over for a month and
I'm in a discipleship group with a guy who we learn Bible verse every week. We just pick one. I miss half the weeks, I think, because I forget, but which is not good to say. But he comes every week with his, and he's like, "Oh, this is from your box." My son came in on Thursday and said, "Dad, it's time to do our card." I'm like, "Wow,
it's working."
Great. Yeah.
Frame it up this way for me, Bob. What's at stake? What's at stake if fathers don't step in and actively engage with their boys this way?
The society is at stake. We now know that almost 60% of college students are girls. It's like, where are the boys? They're playing video games. They're not getting married. They are not working. They are not leading. My goodness, I know 20 girls that are spiritual giants, and I can't find a guy to match them with. And the social fabric is at stake, and their faith walk is at stake. Wow, Mark, this culture today I'm not an alarmist, but it's really going down fast in the confusion of the gender and the woke conversations and things like that. But everything is at stake because we don't have a lot of leaders in politics or government or churches that will stand for what is right. We don't have people that will stand for truth. There's a lot of men that won't stand for truth if it affects their bottom line. And I tell my son and my daughters, when you go through what I went through, there's a silver lining to it. And they say when you go through hard times, you see who your friends are. And I saw who my friends are, which was who stood by me. And that's a really sweet thing to know that when I was down and out, they came by me. But it's 1 in 100. 1 in 100 people will stand up for you at the expense of their own comfort. Very few people will stand up for someone else at the expense of their own livelihood or reputation or comfort. And we need men to teach their sons to stand for truth, to stand for others, and to be the first responders to those lone sheep. We have to have a mentality where we're concerned about the lone sheep and not this organizational structure of the church. It's always about the individual. God protects the church. We're in a very dangerous way in a society where men no longer stand up for truth at the risk of their own comfort.
Okay, so we've been chatting for about an hour or so. And the audience that's listening to this is likely very much overlapped with the audience that is going to be in the seats experiencing your Born to Be Brave show and would be working with the box. You've given us a bunch of information, some good stories, some things to chew on. But is there one thing that the listener, you would say, if there's one thing they could take away, what would it be?
If there's one thing I say to dads that I think I would like every dad to know, is that he is anointed to be the father of the son that God gave him. He is also different than the mother. And in our ministry, I consistently see dads being passive. I'll meet with moms and dads, and the moms will completely dominate the conversation, and the dads will be passive. If I can tell you, can I tell you a little story for
Sure.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, my son was in college. I was paying his tuition, and he started to hang around with a girl who was a friend of the family. And he was sort of trying to minister to her, and then he kind of got a crush on her. Then he wanted to date her, and she was not dateable at the time. She did not treat him well. she wasn't very interested, but he is such a humble servant kid that he's kind of like, well, nobody else will want to date her, but I'm trying to do that. And it wasn't good for him. And so I struggled about this because I thought, I know that his personality is he's such a humble kid that I thought he would probably marry the first girl he dated. And so I talked to my wife about it and said, we need to do something about this and stop this. And I talked to my in-laws and said that. I said, I'm ready to not pay his tuition. And they're like, I shouldn't do that. It's Robbie. He's the sweetest kid ever. And my wife said to me, don't push him away. And I said, if I can't do what's good for his life, what good does it do to have him close? Like, that's kind of a false dichotomy. Went to my pastor, who finally said, you can do this. You have the right to do this as a father. So I went to Robbie and I said, Robbie, right now I'm paying your tuition. You're my son. I'm glad to do that. You're a hard worker, but I can't fund bad decisions. And so you're going to have to make a decision whether you want to be a man and pay your own way and date whoever you want, or whether you're still under my household and you do the things I don't think are correct, and I'm not going to pay your tuition anymore. Because I talk about Henry Blackaby experiencing God. We know that God speaks to us through Bible, prayer, circumstances, other people, the Holy Spirit. And I went through this with him. Are your friends thinking this is a good relationship? No. Do you think God's speaking to you? No. And so I said to Robbie, so you're going to have to make that decision, whether you want to continue to date her and pay your own tuition, or you're going to listen to my advice. So, okay, can I think about it? I said, yeah. So about 2 weeks later, I said, Robbie, this is so Robbie. I said, Robbie, have you thought about what we talked about? He said, oh, yeah, you told me not to date her, so I'm not dating her. And then about 6 months later, he came back and said, hey, Dad, do you think it'd be okay to date her now? I mean, he's just such a sweet kid. And by that time, she was like getting married to somebody else. But my point is this. I did the right thing that a mom probably wouldn't have done, because moms are different than dads. And because most dads think that their wife is more spiritual because she reads more books, listens to more podcasts, they abdicate their responsibility because they think that, well, I should never raise my voice. I should never, say some things. I should never, be anything but a total sweetheart to my kids, when at times we have to get stern and lay the law down. I would say to dads, that inner voice in you is often correct, because there's a role for a dad and a mom. And the dad has to have the confidence, even if he's not as spiritual even if he's not a believer, there's still that innate sense of fatherhood that in most cases he understands what it takes to grow a son from a boy to a man. It's not, and so I'm constantly telling fathers, you're the dad. Do the dad things. Be strong. And your wife won't always agree. And just because she checks more spiritual boxes doesn't mean that she's always right. And I think that so many dads are passive because of that, that it's really creating a feminized society where dads aren't living up to their role as being the leaders of the household and keeping kids within boundaries.
We don't know what our role is. We don't know really what it means to be a man. We don't necessarily know how to engage. And so sometimes it's just easier not to check out and take the more passive role. But what I like about what you said is there is an intuition in us that can be trusted, and yes. it may be a little dangerous, and it may get us off course at times, but that intuition, that masculine intuition, can be trusted and is vital. Kids were placed inside of a two-parent structure for a reason, and we as men have a gift to bring. And so anyway, again, putting my words to yours, but trusting that intuition, I think is what I hear you say.
Yeah, and I have this big thing I'm going to write a little book on someday, but it should only be 30 pages, and they want me to write 192 on it. But it's called Knucklehead's Friends. I always say everybody needs some knucklehead friends that can call you a knucklehead, and you have to have 3 or 4 of them. That if 3 or 4 of them say you're a knucklehead, you are a knucklehead. Now, not one can just do it, but in terms of dads trusting their intuition, they need to be in a group like that, or else I can go sideways. We have to, as men, have a group of men that can speak into our lives and say, yeah, I agree with you. That's why I went to a few different people when I did that, because I didn't want to do the wrong thing. And so I think I don't want to let dads loose, be yelling at their kids for no reason. But I think that's why men have to be together and mentor each other and share those experiences, because otherwise, I'm convinced if you don't have some knucklehead friends, you're doomed. You just will go sideways because you just won't have proper perspective or boundaries. So,
okay, so tell me what's going on with Born to be Brave events and the box, and how can guys engage with what you're doing?
Well, what's happening is we're probably going to do some shows in the spring. We're still deciding that because of the pandemic. I want to encourage people to also look at the girls' show if they have daughters at mytruegirl.com. If you go to borntobebrave.com, you'll see the box. We have 2 of them now. They're great. I'm really proud of them. And so if you connect there, sign up on the website. We do parent workshops every couple of months. Some father and son workshops that we're starting that have really been cool and a good place for community. And we'll see what happens in 2022. You know, that it's all up in the air, but we believe we'll be back on the road in probably late spring of 2022. So go to the website, go to our Facebook page, and we'll keep you up to date.
The handle on your Facebook page is Born to be Brave Tour. Is that right?
It's now borntobebrave.com. I finally got borntobebrave.com. So
got it.
We're good.
All right, cool. Well, borntobebrave.com is the website. Borntobebrave.com is also the social handle. The guy is Bob Gresh. Bob, I've enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you for your time, for the work that you're doing to step into this space, for your vulnerability and your willingness to share your story, warts and all. Because guess what? Those of us that don't talk about them, we still have them, right? Like just because you don't present them and share your story courageously doesn't mean you're perfect. And so thank you for showing us that way, and for giving us your time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, love your ministry. I love what you're doing and your objective. And I think it's super important. And so thank you for continuing on and taking time for me too. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bob Gresh. I know I did. And I encourage you to check out his website, borntobebrave.com, or on social media. Again, borntobebrave.com is his handle there. Check into the schedule for upcoming events, or the Born to be Brave box, the subscription box that you can check out for you and your son. You know, I think the thing that stands out to me the most probably in this second half of the conversation is this idea that it's okay to be the dad, to be the masculine, to be the man in the situation, to give to your boy really what he needs in order to become a man. You understand a boy much better than mom does. And this is not at all to take anything away from mom. Moms are fantastic. They do so much for the kids. But I like what Bob had to say about just trusting your instincts. I might say it this way. And in fact, I think I probably did. Trusting that masculine intuition. Now, of course, you're not going to get it right all the time. Yes, you will make mistakes. I have made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. No dad gets it right or perfect. But the invitation here is to trust that masculine spark, that intuition, to be the man, to be the father in a healthy and godly way, but in an active way in the situation, to give to your boy what he needs. I think it's a great reminder of what it means to be an active father. And I'm thankful for Bob mentioning it and reminding us that we have that intuition if we're willing to trust it and lean in. Okay, guys, that's all for this week. We'll be back once again next week. You guys know the drill. Same bat time, same bat channel. Looking forward to it. Until then, adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.